Ready? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Parvadikacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai and Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai and Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Now, can I ask you a favor? We want to try to give some facility for the men to, have it. If you could move over a little bit here, because we have some other people maybe arriving. That'd be great, thank you. Now, we are near the end of chapter 15, or did we start 16? I don't think we started 16. I think we're on the last verse. Right? We didn't do 20. Yeah, we're on page 613, I have. Okay, 613. Okay. Whoops. Forgive me. Oh, come on. There we go. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this first day of May 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, HG Dravida Swami Prabhupada. And we are at the end of chapter 15, the Yoga of the Supreme Person, text number 20 on page 613. Iti guyatamam shastram idam uktam mayanaga etad buddha buddhiman syat kritikrityas cha bharata. Okay. Iti guyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanaga etad buddha buddhiman syat kritikrityas cha bharata. Iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanaga etad buddha buddhiman syat kritikrityas cha bharata. Iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanaga etad buddha buddhiman syat kritikrityas cha bharata. Go ahead, Saul. Iti guhyatamam shastram iti muktam mayanaga etad buddha buddhiman syat kritikrityas cha bharata. Iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanaga etad buddha buddhiman syat kritikrityas cha bharata. Iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanaga etad buddha buddhiman syat kritikrityas cha bharata. I think you can chant it. Iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanaga etad buddha buddhiman syat kritikrityas cha bharata. You have some experience, right?
No.
No?
No.
Pretty amazing. Thank you. All right, word by words. Iti, thus, guhyatamam, the most confidential, shastram, revealed scripture, idam, this, uktam, disclosed, maya, by me, anagha, O sinless one, etat, this, buddha, understanding, buddhiman, intelligent, syat, one becomes, kritikrityaha, the most perfect in his endeavors, cha, and bharata, O son of Bharat. Translation, Lord Krishna says, this is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. Purport. The Lord clearly explains here that this is the substance of all revealed scriptures, and one should understand this as it is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus one will become intelligent and perfect in transcendental knowledge. In other words, by understanding this philosophy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engaging in his transcendental service, everyone can become freed from all contaminations of the modes of material nature. Devotional service is a process of spiritual understanding. Wherever devotional service exists, the material contamination cannot coexist. Devotional service to the Lord and the Lord himself are one and the same because they are spiritual. Devotional service takes place within the internal energy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord is said to be the sun, and ignorance is called darkness. Where the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Therefore, whenever devotional service is present under the proper guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, there is no question of ignorance. Everyone must take to this consciousness of Krishna and engage in devotional service to become intelligent and purified. Unless one comes to this position of understanding Krishna and engages in devotional service, however intelligent he may be in the estimation of some common man, he is not perfectly intelligent. The word anagha, by which Arjuna is addressed, is significant. Anagha, O sinless one, means that unless one is free from all sinful reactions, it is very difficult to understand Krishna. One has to become free from all contamination, all sinful activities. Then he can understand. But devotional service is so pure and potent that once one is engaged in devotional service, he automatically comes to the stage of sinlessness. While one is performing devotional service in the association of pure devotees in full Krishna consciousness, there are certain things which require to be vanquished altogether. The most important thing one has to surmount is weakness of the heart. The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature. Thus one gives up the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord. The second weakness of the heart is that as one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature, he becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter. The problems of material existence are due to these weaknesses of the heart. In this chapter, the first 5 verses describe the process of freeing oneself from these weaknesses of heart. And the rest of the chapter, from the 6th verse through the end, discusses Purushottam Yoga. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 15th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of Purushottam Yoga, the yoga of the Supreme Person. So this chapter is short enough. We can have a quick review here. And Krishna began with a description of the material world as an upside-down banyan tree. You remember that? And the question is, well, where do we see such a tree? With roots upward and branches downward. What's the answer, Sureshwaran? Where do we see such a tree? You don't remember? Okay. Yeah. If you're standing, of course, not the ocean. You can't go to the ocean because there's too many waves. But if you have a nice, quiet lake, and on the other side there's a big fir tree, say, a big tree. You look down in the lake and it's, say the sun is up nicely, you'll see a reflection of the tree. So the root is at the top and all the branches are down because it's a reflection, upside down, inside out. So this material world is a reflection of the real tree in the spiritual world. And that's why we can understand, Prabhupada says, you can understand a lot about God by just contemplating yourself. Not everything, but a lot. For instance, personality. None of us feels like we're, what is that thing, that AI, Is anyone here, AI? Artificial intelligence? They had a problem, It was interesting. It was so realistic, this AI, which could talk back, because it takes in all the words and it can write an article. Our old friend Vrindavan Das, who seems to be traveling or something, he's an expert computer, and he used the app by which he had over here. Yeah, he wrote it. He asked him to write an article or a poem about Krishna, and I'll be darned, didn't he write a poem better than mine? Amazing. So they have a problem now because you can talk to it and it understands your mood. And one fellow, he was convinced that he fell in love with this AI God. You remember that? Did you read that? Yeah. And that that computerized program loved him also. And so he was upset when they shut it down, but it's absurd, right? But the thing is that this whole material world is really advanced AI. I mean, it's not completely artificial in the sense of there's no person behind it, but it's not the real thing. It's a reflection. It's a reflection. Reflection can embody a lot of the original. It looks just like it, For instance, we have loving relationships here. Right? I remember a song long, long ago, "Love Makes the World Go Round." Anyway. I mean, but if you think about it, it's, that's what really the substance is. If there's going to be something that you can really feel some sustained pleasure and commitment to, it's some loving relationship on the material plane. But how long can we try to see if you can shut some doors? Just thinking, I'm not going to say shut some mouths, but just shut some doors. Huh? Who? No, I know. But she's in the kitchen there. Just close the kitchen door. Anyway, so, the problem is that it doesn't last. Compared to our lifetime, okay, you're young and you can fall in love. You're only 20 years old. I have a whole lifetime ahead of me. It's like, might as well be 10 million years. You don't really, it doesn't register on you. But as you go through life, they've done a study on this. Time seems to speed up. Time seems to speed up. I remember, when you're like 6 years old and you have a friend who's 6.5 and he's trying to lord it over you. Hey, I'm 6.5. I'm not 6 anymore, And that lasts a long time. And they figured, like I suspected, it's the percentage. 1 year of a 6-year-old is a pretty big percentage. But when you're 45, it's not that big a percentage. So time seems to speed up. And whatever you gain in this world, in terms of prestige, relationships, whatever it is, beauty, time takes it away. Ultimately, death takes everything away. Krishna says, as death, mrityu sabharaschaham, I take everything away. So it's not a mystery. It's just that we have all kinds of strategies to kind of forget about that, so we can try to enjoy in the moment. But that's a reality. And if that's all there was, okay, let's grab all the gusto you can get. This used to be the theme, slogan. In other words, what is that? YOLO, right? Isn't it? You only live once. No. That's the first lesson in Bhagavad Gita. You don't only live once. You've lived before and you live again. That's a key difference. If you really believe you only live once, then it makes sense to try to grab as much sense gratification as you can. Of course, I'm not going to chant it Sanskrit again, but you know the verse. Those pleasures that come from the senses is the source of your misery. Sometimes it's very obvious. As long as since, 15, of course it was always alcohol, but then there became drugs, there's marijuana and things, now they're legal in most places, So what does that mean? It means that I'm not having a good time. Let me take some agent that'll give me some pleasure, right? And it can. But it's also, chances are, it's doing damage to your brain, right? Or your body. Everyone knows alcohol is like deadly for the body. The kidneys, for the liver, the whole thing. So people know that, but the senses have become so powerful by indulging in that it overcomes the intelligence. I remember, I'm old enough to remember, when they finally put notices on the packs of cigarettes. Cigarettes, smoking is, I think they put can be hazardous to your health before they finally put is hazardous to your health. There's the warning. And it had some effect, Mostly people would cut back. They wouldn't give it up. You have to have some. But still, it's decreased a lot. The percentage of people in America who are smoking cigarettes, as it were, have decreased. Of course, there's been an increasing in pipe smoking and vaping. Whatever. But the point is that it finally got through that it's very dangerous, deleterious to your health, and there's no need for it. Don't start, you know. And so it's working. But there's whole other things. So material life itself, if that's all, you don't know about the pleasures of spiritual life. That's the problem. And we are enjoying beings. This is one of the things that I mentioned before. Krishna is always in bliss. Ishwarak Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha. This is the first verse of a famous work by Brahma called Brahma Samhita, the 5th chapter. And it's a very important verse. Ishwara Parama Krishna. Krishna is the supreme controller. Now Brahma is the supreme wise person in this universe. His very name, one of his nicknames, if you will, is Vidhi, he who possesses all knowledge. He has so much knowledge that he has to have 4 heads with all the brain power. I mean, he has to engineer everything. And he lives an incredibly long time. And from him, you know, he was the first living being, so how's he going to learn anything? Krishna enlightened him from within the heart. And that knowledge of how to gradually populate the universe, manage all the planets, all these different things, was revealed over time. So he is also, you know, he's a conditioned soul to some degree. And so when he first started creating, it didn't go so well. You know, your assignment is to populate the universe. Antonella. What should I do? I don't know. So he started creating beings from his mind, and it went fairly well at first, but then there were some demons that were created. They came after him. He had to discard them, and then he had 4 sons. Okay, it's good. There's 4 sons. Now we need to train you up to populate the universe. And they said, no, thank you. We don't want to get entangled in family life. We're just going to stay. It's amazing. They look like little children, 4 or 5 years old, but they're ancient and they have all this wisdom, you know. So they're known as the 4 Kumaras. So that was a disappointment. He was very angry. He frowned, and from the middle of his brow came Lord Shiva. There's all this stuff going on. Because the material energy is like that. We try to manipulate it a certain way. We seem to have some success, and then, oh my God, we were very successful with our automotive engineering. And now there's like, I don't know, 1 billion cars in the world, and they're all putting out these greenhouse gases. And then the climate has radically changed. I mean, right there, they just had these incredible tornadoes, catastrophic. It was in Florida, I think. Yeah, every day. And, you know, it's extreme weather. And I'm just, you know, it's been a little cold here, but not, you know, it hasn't been so catastrophic. But you never know. So there's the downside. All right, everyone's driving around in a car. We have, but it's creating a havoc in the environment, the climate. So this is the nature of the material world: is that you try to adjust it in a certain way, and it maybe seem to be working for a while, but then time goes by. You get older. You can't do the things you used to do. It's some disappointment. This is the nature. And all your hopes to enjoy, I mean, there are some enjoyments, but it's temporary. It passes. Now, if you had assurance that there was a place, there was a state of consciousness, there was a way of being where you could enjoy varieties of pleasure eternally, and it wouldn't come, you know, it wouldn't end. From our own present experience, it's, yeah, right, you know. Go ahead, keep dreaming like that. I'm going to just live in the here and now, you know, I got to rent it. Because if that's all you know, you'll discount that. And that's where our parampara comes in. Parampara means the disciplic succession. And this goes from recent, you know, Srila Prabhupada, you know, Bhaktisiddhanta back. In other words, there's a history. And they all tell us, and what do they have to gain? These are people who live as simple as possible. They're not out to make money. They're not, you know, Prabhupada came here with $7. And after a few years, he had millions at his disposal, but he was still, you know, at 75, traveling around the world, you know, dealing with all kinds of problems of the society, writing books, getting up at 12 at night to writing books. He never ever, even when he said, I think I'm just going to stay here and write. He never could, because he had disciples all over the world saying, can you please come, you know, enliven us? And he'd go to some, you know, temple in Australia, then he'd go back to LA and come back to New York and to Europe. He even visited Africa a couple of times, And so he obviously wasn't in it for the money. I mean, it's silly, And even if when he had some facility to enjoy, he wouldn't enjoy it. Whatever money was there, he was print more books. And his spiritual master told him, there's this beautiful painting of an incident. Prabhupada was with his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, in Vrindavan, at Radhakund, and he's got his little boy. He had 5 children. He has a little child. He's a householder. And he's walking there, and his spiritual master says, if you ever get money, print books, which means for the people, in other words, to enlighten them. That's what's most important. So anyway, Srila Prabhupada, he embodied that. He showed the principles of tolerance and mercy and determination, even, when the health is failing. He came here with 69, in a few years he was 75, And what was he doing? He was simply giving this knowledge and personifying it, showing how, even though, leading an austere life, one could be joyful and happy and peaceful. How? By not being attached to the things of this world, by always remembering Krishna and chanting Krishna, chanting the holy name, and enlivening others. He was most blissful when he saw more and more people taking up the chanting and becoming happy from it. That's the happiness of someone who's the ultimate philanthropist. So what I'm saying is that this chapter begins with a wonderful analogy that we're all in this upside-down banyan tree. We're trying to enjoy the dream world of material happiness, and we keep getting frustrated. And we're not always human beings, I mean, there's 8,400,000 species. So we have a human life now. We have an advanced brain. We can understand this philosophy. And we can act in such a way and take up this science so that we can break the bondage of birth and death, samsara. And that's what he's teaching here. So he begins with a description of the tree, and then comes, in verses 3 and 4, the formula for breaking out of the tree. One can't understand where the roots are. It's so widespread, the beginning and end. This ashwatam or banyan tree, very, very firmly rooted in desire, our desire to enjoy here. So the way to get free of it is asanga shastrena dudhena chitva. One has to cut down the tree with the weapon of detachment. Detachment. Thank you. Asanga. Now this word sangha is so important. It's an English word by now. It's at least certainly in the phrase satsanga, satsang, right? Satsanga means association with transcendentalists, those who are advanced in yoga, this bhakti yoga. So it means association, and it also means attachment, because what you associate with, you'll become attached to. You'll be in a certain mode, and you become attached to things that we wouldn't think, how could someone like that, But that's what happens. So here he says the shastra. Shastra is a weapon. It's interesting that, there's a word shastra and there's a word shastra. It's so important to see those diacritics. The meaning changes. Shastra is a weapon, a sword to cut. Shastra is the scripture, the books. Now, what's the relationship there? And that is that the root is to obey, because there's another word, shishya, which is a word for disciple. A disciple agrees to be controlled by the words of the guru and the words of the shastra. In other words, the word shish, which is the root of all these words, means to control. So one agrees, because we have to be controlled. We have to serve. We may not think we're serving, but we have all of these desires. I like to give the example of advertising. Advertising is a science, psychologically, where they try to implant a desire into your heart to buy their product. They may only have 10 seconds. You're driving on the highway and there's a big billboard. You notice it, you attract it, and you go. You may not have time to read the whole thing. You can't have much on the billboard, right? But there's some image there, some phrase, some slogan that they hope will catch your mind. They have something on there that's attractive, member of the opposite sex, or whatever it is, a scene from, you're in Detroit and you have a scene from Florida, all sunshine and people.
Usually a big burger.
Yes, you have a big burger. And something, so then you keep driving, but they've implanted a desire in your mind. So next when you get hungry, you may not even remember it, but it's subliminally, yeah, I think I'll go to McDonald's, Your own, So the point is we're serving those desires that are implanted in our mind. And those material desires keep us in the material world. So as long as we're not free from them, we have to come back. You die, you get old, you get sick, you die, you get reborn. Birth is not a picnic either. We forgot, 9 months in the womb and everything. And so, and then you come back in this world, which who knows what's going to happen. So, and all because to try to enjoy this world. So where is there enjoyment that's not going to tie you to this world? That's what we have to find, and that's in Krishna consciousness. You read about the activities in the spiritual world, and there's all kinds of things. Krishna's cavorting here with his boys. His mother is expressing her love in so many ways, and there's the cows and the cow, and it's kind of an idyllic situation. And there's no demons up there. The demons are down here when we read about Krishna book as a replica of Vrindavan. But there's all kinds of excitement, different games, and it's all based on this love of God, love of Krishna. And because he's God, he can express love for everyone, and they all feel personally loved. So so how to get free? Asanga shastrena dudhena. You have to develop this weapon of detachment, and really, the way of doing it is developing your attachment for Krishna. That sharpens the weapon. That sharpens the sword of detachment. And then that's not the end of it. Okay, we're detached now from the tree, but tatak padang tat bodhimagitavyam. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Lord from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. So that's the spiritual world. And the way to seek it out is by hearing about it, and by hearing about Krishna. And from within the heart, as we'll learn in text 15, Krishna is within our heart as the super soul. In our conditioned state, he's giving us the intelligence by which we can try to fulfill our desires. He's overseeing, he's managing. But that's not what he wants. He's trying to give us this knowledge, but we can't hear it. So he comes externally as the book and as the guru, as the sadhu to teach. Krishna is speaking through him, so we can hear. Just as we can't see him in his spiritual form because our vision is not acute, not tuned. But we can see stone, we can see wood, So he comes through that form, and we see the beautiful forms on the altar. It sounds like, oh, that's idol worship. No, it's Krishna worship. He's agreed to appear. And we just had this festival last Saturday. We had the whole temple was filled with flower petals. They threw them on the altar on the deities, up to the neck practically. They were still smiling a lot. They were very happy to have that. And then they took the petals, and we came out on the altar, and we got, all the petals, it was covered, flower petals. There'll be another one on June 6th. Don't miss it. I think it's 6th. Anyway, it's in June. Yeah, it's in June, so coming up. So, and everyone was, it's inconceivable. That's the thing. It doesn't make, but through the name, that's even more inconceivable. Like Krishna can reach out through his name, and by chanting his name, one can feel the presence of God. And the most obvious thing you feel is you feel detached from all those other things that are bothering you. Because it's all in the mind. If you can train the mind to think of Krishna, it'll no longer be attracted to Maya. That's the magic of it. And that's loosening the bonds, loosening the knots in the heart, or cutting the bonds as is mentioned here. And then you can't stop there, because then you have to go on. Nirmana moha citta sanga dosha. This is text 5, is how to surrender. Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are free from dualities of happiness and distress, and who unbewildered know how to surrender to the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. So he's describing the kingdom of God, and we get one verse, text 6, describing Goloka Vrindavan, Vaikuntha. This is the one verse in the whole Bhagavad Gita. Natad suyu nasasanko napavaka. That supreme abode of mine is not illumined by the sun or the moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. So it's self-effulgent. Everything and every one there is self-effulgent. And then he describes who the living entities are and how we transmigrate from one body to another. Text 7. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. So this idea of an anksha is very important. Anksha is a minute particle. The example, we have a wonderful example of the ocean out here. It's so vast, right? But if you take a little cup or even a little drop, couple of drops, it'll have the same chemical composition. It'll be salty and have other things in there. So similarly, we are a little tiny anksha of Krishna. We have the qualities of God in minute degree. One of which is independence, free will. We have a certain amount of free will. You know, it's constrained by material limitation, but we can decide to ignore this knowledge, you know, and just work with the material world and try to enjoy it and do it, you know, like that. Or we can take it seriously and do those things by which we can have to serve. We have to, you know, we're either going to serve Maya or we're going to serve Krishna. In one of my favorite verses, this is a poem. First Sanskrit, Kamadinang katina katita palita dhurni deshas. Tesham jata mayana karuna nattapano upashanti. Utsvijayata natayatupate sampatam labdha buddhis. Tvamayata kshadanamabayam mam diyung svatmadasye. So what he's saying there is, I think it's Madhavendra Puri, that kama doesn't mean sexual lust. It means any strong desire. You know, strong desire in Sanskrit, kama. So, kama, etc. What's the etc.? Anger, illusion, madness. All of these start with material desire. Krishna says at the end of the 3rd chapter, there's a whole lesson on it. What is it that impels us to do things that we know are bad for us? We regret, like, oh, why did I do that? It's kama. Kama esha, krodha esha. And when it's frustrated, it becomes anger, and which covers one's consciousness. You know, the eternal enemy of this world. So that this devotee is saying, he's waking up, he said, in how many ways have I sought to obey the seductive demands of my wicked desires? They've shown me no mercy, yet on I've gone shamelessly trying to quench lust's unquenchable fires. But now I'm rejecting these hellish desires, for my higher intelligence now has awoken. O Krishna, O shelter of fearlessness, please let me serve you with faith that will never be broken. So he wants to give up the service of the material desires and all of this craziness and serve Krishna. And that's really where our salvation lies. That's how we can go to the spiritual world, which is our home. How many times does Prabhupada write and say, back home, back to Godhead? All right, so we're little particles, and now we're struggling hard with the body, with the 6 senses, which include the mind, going from life to life. And then how do we get to different bodies? Text 8, the living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. Every day, every hour, every moment, we are creating a certain state of consciousness. A lot of that, what we have created is in the subconscious. We're not fully aware of it, right? But they may come up in dreams, or certain impulses we have, so many things that is subconscious. So the mind is very deep and it's complicated. So, but it doesn't die. When this gross body dies, which is just a very, very complicated machine, an amazing machine, which if you think about it, the amazing, not just the human body, but any of these organisms proves the existence of God. The intelligence that it takes to try to balance this, you know, all these different things. There's intelligence everywhere, you know, and especially in the living organism. So anyway, especially human life, we can use our intelligence to do one thing, not another, and get an education and transform ourselves, you know, in life. And so we have the life of responsibility. We get karma. The dogs don't have any karma. It's already programmed in. They're going to act like dogs. You know, and then when they leave that dog body, they'll come up to another species and finally come back to the human form. It's a big cycle. So in the human form, we have a choice. We can strengthen our intelligence. What is education all about? Why is it important to educate children? We all learn to read at some point. Because without it, you're at a tremendous disadvantage in this world, right? If you say no, Prabhupada describes he didn't want to go to school. If it was up to his father, who would always pamper him, he would have never gone to school. He just wanted to play all day. His first day in school. But his mother said, no, he's got to learn, So apparently in India, they have this service where they'll have some other elder man, who forced the child screaming to go to school. First day anyway. Anyway, so he went to school and of course became, he didn't graduate from college, but he went to college. So what happens in school? So you're reading, you're getting all kinds of ideas. Your mind is growing, and you're getting so many things going on. Hopefully, for the betterment of your life, you'll be able to deal in this world. But the problem is the world itself is this illusion. So no matter how much material knowledge you get, you can be very erudite, in material subjects, but it's not going to help you get out of birth and death. And if you're a very intelligent professor and you know all these different things, but you're addicted, you're an alcoholic and everything, you'll go down from the human form. You lose it in spite of all of that. But if you develop your intelligence by reading Bhagavad Gita as it is, then you can say, oh, now I see what the real, let me develop this internal body, this subtle body we call it, mind, intelligence, and ego, such that it's becoming detached or repulsed, from all the things that are taking my mind away from Krishna. It's a struggle. It's a discipline. It's called sadhana, practice, for a reason. Like a practice. I got to practice trombone or the flute to learn how to play it. I remember my brother. They thought, because my father was kind of musical, but my brother wasn't. But they said, well, maybe you can learn to play the violin. I remember, maybe a couple of days he played, and that was it. It's not going to work. Never got past the place where we had to keep our earplugs in. But then when I started playing my little flute, I liked it, because I had a propensity, maybe from previous life or something, So all of that, is very complicated in there. But we all have deep, deep within us our propensity for loving Krishna, for engaging in these wonderful pastimes that we can read about. There's excitement, there's adventure, there's love, there's humor. Krishna is the best joker, best. So all of that is there, but we can't access it now because we're conditioned. We have all of these modes. We read about them in the last chapter. So to get through that, here he's describing the process. The living entity, we carry our different conceptions of life, like air carries aroma. So, if we led a sinful life and, and uncontrolled, it's going to be thoughts and feelings that take us to a lower destination. Let's put it that way. But if we have some aspects of Krishna consciousness, even a little bit, we're assured of a human form of life. So that's very encouraging. And we had that at the 2nd chapter, again in the 6th chapter. So we should try to, find out about it, learn about it, and then take up the process, which is basically chanting Hare Krishna. This mantra is very powerful, and it can transform our consciousness so that we're headed up rather than down. Foolish. Now, living entities, thus taking another gross body, obtain a certain type of eye, ear, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. Let's see, we enjoy or experience a particular type of sense objects. The foolish can't understand how one transmits, but one who has eyes trained in knowledge can see this. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see this clearly, but those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization can't see what is taking place, though they may try to. The splendor of the sun, then he kind of shifts gears and he explains how Krishna is making everything work. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of the whole world, comes from me. The splendor of the moon, the splendor of the fire also come from me. I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life outgoing and incoming to digest the 4 kinds of foodstuff. Now this is something like what we read in chapter 7, chapter 9. chapter 10, where you can remember Krishna just by your everyday experiences. I'm the light of the sun and the moon. I'm the ability in man. I'm the fragrance of the earth. The taste of water. When you drink water, if you remember that passage, you remember Krishna. It's his energy. So that helps us. Then, very important verse, text 15. I am in everyone's heart. For me come remembrance, knowledge, forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta. I am the knower of the Vedas. So Krishna is with us at all times, and he's giving us inspiration for what we want to do. But if we want to serve him, he'll really, give us inspiration for that. Then he talks about the fallible and infallible, those who are in the spiritual world and the material world. And so we're all fallible here. It means that we're in temporary bodies. We're not in our original state. And then he says, and I am beyond these two. There's the greatest living personality, the supreme soul, the imperishable Lord himself, who's entered the three worlds, is maintaining them. And it turns out that we learn that's Krishna. Next verse, because I am transcendental beyond both fallible and infallible. Because I'm the greatest, I am celebrated both in this world and in the world as the Supreme Person. That's why this chapter is called the Yoga of the Supreme Person, Purushottama, and that's in this world. And he's in the kitchen now taking care of his little baby, Purushottama Das. Okay, quick. Yeah, I'm sorry I took all the time.
Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Thank you for all the wonderful knowledge. So, when we are sleeping, and sometimes we are in that deep state, of
dreamless sleep? Dreamless sleep?
Yeah, dreamless sleep also, right? What's that state, and is there anywhere in Bhagavatam or any of our text, is it written like where we are exactly? Because we are not here when we are in that state.
Well, there's said there to be three states. There's waking state, dreaming state, and dreamless sleep. Sushupti it's called. And it's not a question of where we are. I mean, the soul is in the body, but when the final annihilation takes place, and all of this is dissolved, then we don't die. Nobody dies ever. Don't worry about it. Or actually, we should worry about it because we think we're going to die. But anyway, when the whole thing is wound up, and that will come eventually, we all get merged back into the body of Mahavishnu. And then it's like suspended animation. You're not dreaming, you're not aware, but you're not dead. In other words, the consciousness is there in a very rudimentary form, but you're unconscious. And then, a long time later, when the creation starts taking place, then through his glands, Mahavishnu is injecting all the living entities. And then it's Brahma's job to make sure they have proper bodies and start again. And then you get born and you wake up and you start to do. So it's like that. It's that our consciousness, as we can experience, is sometimes covered. We forget things. It's not that we're always completely awake. Even when we're awake. So it's in and out. It's in and out. But in the spiritual world, there's no out. You're completely awake, And there's a kind of sleep there, but it's just part of the pastime. Krishna has to wake up and get home. So his mother doesn't, suspect anything that he's out cavorting with the gopis, So it's all part of the Leela. And it's Satchit Ananda. Eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. And we get a taste of that. That's the wonderful thing about Krishna consciousness. If you chant Hare Krishna, if you get into kirtan, you come to Rath Yatra. Do you know what Rath Yatra is? Rath Yatra is this big festival where we have these three carts, and especially in LA. It's coming up probably the first week of August, if not the first week, the second week. What is it?
It's the
first week, because the first Sunday.
Yeah, because it's not a college.
Yeah, the first Sunday of August. And it's going to be a big one. We had one last year, but this will be, I think, definitely post-pandemic festival. And it's wonderful. We go there and march down the street in Venice Beach, and there's these beautiful carts with the forms of the Lord on there, and everyone's chanting and dancing. And then when you get to the site, there's all these wonderful booths and wonderful things to eat and to hear, music and everything, and dance. And they may have some plays. So you can plan on that. And then, what did you just do when you did that? You just glorify the Lord. You know, I didn't get drunk. You're a different kind of intoxication, which it has a very good result. You know, you just feel very enlivened by it. So it's coming up, and you'll hear. Well, I think we'll have announcements in our newsletter. We have a newsletter that comes out. Yeah, you can get. It's electronic newsletter we have. Okay, I'm sorry I took all the time. But this is just Monday, so we can reconvene tomorrow. And now we'll adjourn and get ready for Arti and Kirtan in a few minutes. Oh my God. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And we will definitely begin text 16, chapter 16 tomorrow. So brace yourself, divine and demoniac, mostly about the demoniac.